The other day I was doing a bit of guitar teaching, and my pupil, lad of about 14, he asked me a question. He said, "Sir," don't get called that often, "what's a CD?" And I thought, I should have been expecting the question, really, because people don't listen to CDs anymore. Kids don't listen to CDs. If they've got, their parents are more likely to have either record collections or indeed embrace the internet like everyone else. So this thing, this half an ounce bit of plastic that plays for an hour and a quarter, is kind of old hat, which is a shame, because actually in terms of consumer audio it's the best format humanity has ever experienced. Don't let the vinyl people say that vinyl's better. It has a different sound, but actually vinyl's great on the outside, but as it gets to the inside it's pretty hopeless really when you compare it with the quality of this. Indeed, things like Ravel's Bolero, which is a famous piece of music that starts really quietly and ends really loudly, is available on a record where the needle, you place it on the inside and it works its way outwards, so that by the time you get to the outside of the record, all the quality, the fidelity and the loudness will reflect that orchestral work. Now, he also asked me what Outboard was. So I guess he's starting his sort of music technology course. And I thought, okay. And I thought I'd make a video about my Outboard kit that I've got here. These old bits of kit that I've had for decades. Some of them are, I had since I was a kid. And in conjunction with a mixing desk and a multi-channel recorder, you can do your mixes. Now, really, quite often now I use the computer. I use Logic, and I record everything that way because it's very convenient. Everything's in the box. You can send an audio file straight from your computer off to somebody. You don't have to burn it to a CD first or whatever. But I do know a lot of people who still like to use this stuff, and there is really a reason why. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I've got my 16-channel hard disk machine down here. So I'm going to reposition the camera and actually show you a little bit about the Outboard and what they are, and the fact that you can get these on eBay for nothing. They're not really worth anything at all. So next up, I'm going to show you each piece. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I've got a microphone here which I'm going to speak through. At the moment, the narration is coming through another mic, so that's just goes straight to the video soundtrack. Now, here we've got some blue controls on the mixing disc. 4 of them. Now, what these blue controls do is it allows me to send my mic signal, which is coming through this channel rather, and it sends it to the 4 bits of Outboard that I've got in my rack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this mic to speak into while I'm showing you what each effect does and what you can do with them. Now, the first thing I've got in my effects rack is this. It's the Alesis Quadraverb, 20K bandwidth simultaneous digital effects processor. Basically what you could do is you could have reverb, you could have delay, you could have a pitch thing which would be like chorus, and then some EQ as well. And you could do all sorts of mixing. You could order the effects much as you can in Logic. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to speak into this other mic, this mic here, and we'll have a little play with it. So 1, 2. The reverb you're now hearing is coming from this. I've grown up with Alesis reverbs rather, and just found them to be really nice, to really have a character of their own. It is quite hard to make a computer plugin sound the same way. So we've got a little display here, so there's no diagrams or anything to look at the sort of length of the reverb, for example. So that says pre-EQ reverb. Then if I just go up, post-EQ reverb. Now that means that you can actually have reverb that is after the equalization that you apply. Gated reverb. Yeah, if you listen to the snare sound of that record, it's a gated reverb. So now we've got the stereo chorus, So if you're listening in stereo on this, if you're listening on headphones, you will hear that it sounds quite sort of spatial. There's all sorts of other things in here. Stereo flanger. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that is a proper stereo delay, where it literally is what is called ping pong delay. Now these sounds, this thing is, 30 years old, and it works perfectly, absolutely faultlessly, but it's quite noisy. The noise that you may be hearing at the moment is the processor of this, and if I turn this up now with the mic feeding it off, there is actually a bit of hiss and a bit of noise there, but that's the way it is. Now that is from the first control on my mixing desk on that channel, the first blue control. The second one down is just a reverb unit. It doesn't do anything else, although there is a delay and a reverse gate. There's a kind of this as a bonus, but it's nice actually. I had this one stolen, and for some absolute miracle I got it back, but this was the one that I got on the insurance, and actually I really like it. I used it for absolutely donkeys. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now this time, for me, it's very tactile, because you just, if you want a longer reverb, you just twist this. 2, 1, 1. Now we have an output control here, so if you can use this in series with the output of your mixing desk, so you can have your direct signal level as well if you like. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. But in terms of a mixing desk, I'm more interested in just having the effect only. So you can have also, I've got plate 1, we could have cathedral, large hall, delay. So many things you can do on this. This is 30 years old nearly. Now the one below that, this is the oldest bit of digital effects that I've got. It's the Roland DEP-3. They're still not worth a huge amount of money, but the sound is quite incredible. It's really, really fun. Now, don't know if you can now hear that hum. That is due to the age of this thing. Now this is something you don't get on Logic. You don't get processor noise. If you add a reverb, it's silent in essence. Whereas when you're using this stuff, this stuff has analog circuitry in as well. So if I speak through this, yeah. Little bit of feedback there, because actually the repeat rate, or rather the amount of repeats, was set quite high. So I just ramp that down again. There it is. Wow, yeah. 1, 2, 2, 2. Now this. All that sort of processor, that's just essentially firing up the very, very, well, comparatively slow processor in this. Every time you switch it, it sort of has to reboot itself, so there's all that noise. Now, the only trouble with this, of course, is if you're doing a mix and you want to save a particular patch, you can do it on this by using the right button here, and then you can put the memory in. I've never really bothered, actually. It's just something that you can actually do that with, and also this will work with MIDI as well, so you can actually program this and you can address all the things via MIDI. That's another term that's sort of slowly being consigned to the sort of history books in terms of its name, but it's still very much in parlance with the USB format. Now, going down, we've got this. The Zoom 1201. Now, I don't think I've ever heard an awful noise from one of these. They are just such a lot of fun to switch the... There you go. So I've got a phaser at the moment. The mix control here I've got set all the way to the right so that it's only listening to the effect and not the microphone. In fact, I could take the mic out of the mix on my mixing desk so you're just hearing this. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And that's just such fun. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Oh, lo-fi effects. Why you'd want that? We are sort of discovering lo-fi in terms of things like the bit crushing technology, bit crushing and reducing sample rate to makes something sound older. So this is no exception. I bought this about 20 years ago, I suppose, and it's just a very nice thing to have. It's especially useful in a live venue, for example, where you can quickly make adjustments. You don't have to go through lots of menus. So it just gives you, it says character variation. I mean, that's all it says. That's pretty, I think that's quite liberating in a way. You haven't got to fight your way through lots of things. 1, and the reverb on it. 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put a little bit of a multi-track recording on. So I'm going to stop the video, and the next thing you'll see is my mixing desk and my multi-track recorder. And I'm going to have a little play and see what effects can augment my my live mix. So here I am at my control panel. I've got my mixing desk here and my 16-channel hard disk recorder here. So what I did with this is I recorded a gig that we did. It's just a band gig in a bar with a view to making a demo, and took some video footage as well, just for a demonstration. So what I've got here is I've found that all my channels are a little bit all over the place. I've got sort of bass guitar, snare drum, bass drums over here somewhere. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the mix back and find that snare drum. There you go, channel 6. So I want to put a bit of reverb on that snare only. Now on Logic, you just find your snare track and you just get a plug-in, a reverb plug-in, or a reverb send. Now that's where the reverb sends on Logic and the reverb sends on this are essentially exactly the same idea. You've just got rather a lot of cabling and a lot of stuff to do it with. So I'm going to put the snare, just going to put a bit of reverb on that. Now, all I did was to take this channel and feed it into one or more of those effects. You can have all 4 if you like. I must admit I did tweak those a bit so that the reverb I put a delay on or something, so I'd have to work with this panel as well while I'm playing it back. Now you can solo the snare drum out and also solo each effect unit. Listen to that hum. That's not good. So if I play this back now, so you can see that this is really quite a long-winded way of doing it, but I quite like the creativity angle, and that's what I was saying just now about actually being quite into this method rather than going on to the computer and doing it. It's because actually this method can give you some really interesting results, and you can feed effects units into each other, you can make them feed back to each other. There's lots you can do with this. So I hope I didn't bore that child to tears about outboard gear. He seemed to stay awake, but I thought I'd tell you about it as well.